Most video games have some element of planning. The easiest example is to point to the strategy or turn-based genre, but even the most gung-ho of games have some elements of planning in them. You may be assessing your options for minutes at a time in the most methodical of games, but other games may involve split-second planning and decisions, like your course of action when stumbling upon an enemy. Deciding on how to progress a character in a game with, say, a skill tree, involves you planning for something that'll affect you dozens of hours later into the same game. Even fighting games involve large amounts of planning when employing your various different attacks and defensive options. So what if we took this integral element of game design and threw it in the garbage? Enter WarioWare.
Hey there, Jimmy. I need you to make some games for me. Mona, I need your help. What's it pay? Hold on. I can't hear you. You're breaking up. Oh, so will you make some games for me or what? Hey, Ashley. Okay, I'll call you back.
WarioWare throws you into gauntlets of micro-games. You're presented with a few words at most on your objective as your game comes into view, but figuring out what to do is otherwise up to you as the timer counts down. It's astonishing how well the developers are able to convey the necessary action for each stage in just a couple of seconds. Let's look at a few microgames from WarioWare Inc. The first one instructs you to catch. The background is black and there are only a few things for you to notice. Even if you can't piece together what's about to happen immediately, the baton falling gives you enough time to spur you to press the A button to catch it, and it'll only be a few seconds before you analyze the next scenario thrown at you. You see a jump rope, you jump over it. You see a funky fresh dance move, you copy it. This simplicity is paramount to being able to get away with such little information. Goro Abe, who played a major role in development, said in an interview with Kikizo that, if the game was too difficult to play, then we didn't use it. We wanted to make sure that the game was easy to understand, and that you could play it with your instinct, and just by looking at the screen. If you could not understand what you had to do in the game just by looking at it, then it would be too difficult. Some do still partially rely on the player having some prior knowledge, like this minigame. If you're familiar with Wild Gunman for the NES, you'll likely understand the objective without even reading the word draw. The idea for these microgames came from a collection of short games in the Japanese exclusive Mario Artist Polygon Studio. You can see the clear influence, as some games were basically just copied over. In the first game, WarioWare Inc., you use the directional pad and A button to control the game, but the following entries would require you to tilt your Game Boy Advance, touch the screen of your DS, pose in front of your DSi's camera, or use the motion control in your Wiimote. Variance is the name of the game when it comes to Wario. You never know what your instructions will be or what will follow. When WarioWare Inc. was being developed, each person on the development team submitted their own ideas for games, and even people outside the development team would submit ideas. This is why you'll see games about knocking candy out of someone's cheeks or tickling muscular men's armpits. These ideas came from a lot of different places. The radical changes in art style are also beautifully unpredictable. Some look like they could have been drawn in a matter of minutes, others have a very detailed anime art style, and others are photorealistic images. There's also the brief cutscenes before and after the sets of microgames, which have gotten better with higher production quality and voice acting. Sometimes these drag on, but for the most part they add to the charm of the game, with all of its silly scenarios, like a random taxi passenger turning into a mermaid, or Orbulon hunting down pigs to get hamburgers. It's clear every other aspect of this series is built to mirror and accentuate the random and unpredictable nature of the microgames. Each set of microgames is run by a different character. Each set has its own music, UI, a way of showing the number of lives you have left, there are different animations for success or failure, and there's voice lines from each character as you play. For example, Cat Stage from the first game plays a song from the traditional Japanese music genre enka, and the stage run by Dribble and Spitz has different music depending on which radio channel you select before the stage, one of which isn't even music, it's a sports commentator describing Wario as he plays baseball.
We batting 0-1-0, no home runs, no RBIs, with 97 strikeouts to lead the league.
Later entries in the series take the variety even further. Specifically in Twisted, a few of the later sets involve specific challenges, like Orbulon's set, which has longer microgames, but take twice the time to complete, or Wario's games that don't have a timer for each microgame, but rather a longer clock that ticks down for each game you play. Finally, the bosses of WarioWare.
It's time.
Despite all the quick thinking you've done up to this point, these bosses are more about the repeated use of a skill than fast reactions. Thankfully, although providing a different experience than the influx of microgames beforehand, these bosses still test similar skills so they don't feel out of place. They exercise your skillfulness with your button pressing, or Game Boy twisting, or screen touching, or Wiimoting. They test your abilities. The WarioWare series was created in an effort to produce something unorthodox and bizarre, and man does it succeed. You never know what you're in store for, and every piece of the game shows this. Why are you able to unlock a Grandma Simulator minigame? Who knows? Who cares? It's WarioWare. In an Iwata-esque interview, Goro Abe said, "Both inside and outside the company, there was a distinct image that we only produced Nintendo-style games. WarioWare was born out of a desire to depart from the norm, with that particular kind of fun that you only get when you make something different. This series set out to be an unadulterated, one-of-a-kind type of fun, and after putting out a mountainside fire with your urine, I think you'd be hard-pressed to say it didn't succeed."